my wife said me, with a smirk on her lips and ice in her voice. You don't need to know what happens on a girl's trip. That's why you're blocked until I get home. The words hit me harder than she realized. I didn't argue, I didn't shout or demand. I just stood there, nodding slowly while the world inside me shifted. She thought I would fight. She wanted me to, but silence is sharper than anger. Jessica and I had been together for 3 years. In that time, I'd convinced myself our relationship was my one safe harbor. My job as a private investigator had shown me the ugliest sides of humanity. Cheaters, fraudsters, liars with smiles plastered across their faces. Day in, day out, I peeled back masks for a living, and after long nights chasing shadows, I believed I had a light waiting at home. But here's the truth I learned too late. Even safe harbors can be illusions. I'd bought our home after 10 years of dangerous assignments, long nights, long waits, and risks that would make most men quit. Every wall, every room represented sacrifice, and she lived in it, laughing, making plans, building what I thought was our future. I trusted her with everything, and in my line of work, trust is the rarest, most valuable currency there is. But then came the trip. 5 days in Las Vegas with her 3 closest friends. Lauren, the self-appointed leader, twice divorced, with a hunger for attention that could never be fed. Becca, the eager follower, mirroring Lauren's every move like a shadow with no thoughts of her own. And Qley, quiet, watchful, calculating in ways that always made my skin itch. I never liked them. To me, they weren't friends. They were sirens, always dragging Jessica back toward chaos, whispering in her ear that life with me was too safe, too boring. I knew how they saw me. The stable guy who paid the bills, the dependable man who gave Jessica everything except drama. A few nights before the trip, I stood in our bedroom helping her pack. She tossed dresses, shoes, and tiny bottles of perfume into a suitcase. I asked casually, "What's the flight number?" "And which hotel again?" "Just in case, there's an emergency." She froze, then turned. Her eyes, usually warm and playful, had gone cold, sharp. "You don't need that information," she said flatly. I frowned. It's a girl's trip, Mark," she cut me off, her voice taking on that biting, condescending edge I hated. "The point is to get away. From everything, including you." I stared at her, stunned. "I'm not trying to stop you. Her arms crossed, her chin lifted in defiance. "You don't need to know what happens on a girl's trip. That's why you're blocked until I get back." Blocked. The word echoed in my head. She wasn't asking for privacy. She was building a wall. She wasn't saying, "I'll call you less." She was declaring a blackout. I should have been angry. I should have argued. But instead, my training kicked in. In my profession, when someone hides something behind a locked door, you don't waste time pounding on it. You find the key, or a back entrance. So I smiled faintly and said, "Okay, have a great time." For a flicker of a second, her confidence faltered. She had expected a fight. She'd wanted to justify whatever she was planning by pointing to my overreaction. But I gave her nothing. The next morning, I drove her to the airport. She was glowing, already intoxicated with freedom, chattering about how much fun they'd have. As we pulled to the curb, she leaned over, kissed me on the cheek, and whispered, "Don't miss me too much. I'll unblock you when I land." "I won't," I answered. She laughed, thinking I was joking. I wasn't. I watched her disappear into the terminal with her suitcase rolling behind her. Then I drove away, not back home, but to my office, because at that moment the boyfriend had gone quiet. The investigator had clocked in. Jessica thought she had vanished into 5 days of secrecy. What she didn't know was that she had just handed me 5 days of absolute freedom to discover everything. And when she came back expecting me at the airport, she would find someone else waiting. The morning Jessica's plane took off, I wasn't pacing at home waiting for her to unblock me. I was at my office, coffee steaming beside me, laptop open, notebook ready. For most boyfriends, the trip would have ended in blind trust and waiting. For me, it was the beginning of an operation. The first breadcrumb came faster than I expected. Jessica's ringleader friend Lauren couldn't resist posting a photo on Instagram. The four of them stood on her driveway, luggage stacked high, all smiles. To anyone else, it was a harmless snapshot of friends leaving for the airport. But my eyes weren't on them. My eyes went to the car parked behind them, a shiny black SUV. A small detail, yes, but small details are where the truth hides. I zoomed in on the license plate, ran it through my database. Within minutes, I had a name: Adam Cole. Wealthy, senior partner at a major investment firm, married, 2 kids, a man whose face appeared in financial magazines and charity galas. Interesting. Jessica had told me they were flying out on a budget airline. So why was a man like Adam Cole, married, rich, powerful, connected to their departure? I dug deeper. Commercial flight manifests are a matter of record if you know where to look. That morning, no tickets existed under Jessica's name. None for her friends either. But there was one other departure from our city bound for Las Vegas, a private jet, owned by Adam Cole's firm, filed that same morning. The picture began to take shape. Jessica thought blocking me would keep me blind. She didn't realize she had given me the freedom to look without disguise. And then, like clockwork, her friends began making mistakes. Becca, the follower, the echo, the one who couldn't go 5 hours without validation, had an open social media profile. To her, it was a highlight reel. To me, it was evidence. Her feed became my surveillance camera. Photo 1. The 4 women at a poolside cabana, oversized cocktails in hand. But in the mirrored surface of her sunglasses, I spotted the reflection of a man. Broad shoulders, tailored shirt, sitting opposite them. Photo 2. A video inside a nightclub. Strobe lights flashing, bass pounding, laughter ringing out. But in the chaos, I saw Lauren pressed close to a man, whispering in his ear. A man who was definitely not her ex-husband. Photo 3. Qley's post. A group dinner shot, elegant plates of food arranged on a long mahogany table. At first glance, nothing unusual. Until I noticed the painting behind them, a massive, abstract canvas. That painting wasn't in just any restaurant. I knew it. A quick reverse image search confirmed it. That piece hung inside the Bellagio's most exclusive high-roller suite. A room that wasn't available to the general public. A room reserved for VIPs who dropped millions at the tables. That was no budget trip. I made some calls. A contact in Vegas owed me a favor. Within an hour, I had confirmation. Adam Cole had checked into that very suite, hosting a group of clients. And yes, 4 women were listed as his guests. Jessica was one of them. My girlfriend hadn't gone to Vegas for some innocent girls' weekend. She had gone to play arm candy for a married man and his associates. But there was still one final piece, the knife in the back I hadn't expected. In one of Becca's shaky nightclub videos, I caught a laugh. Jessica's laugh. She was talking to someone just off frame. I isolated the audio, cleaned it, and ran it through analysis. The program spat out a name. Scott, her ex-fiancé, the man she'd sworn she despised, the man she told me had broken her heart, betrayed her, cheated on her, the man she had painted as a villain so that I could play the role of rescuer. And there he was, alive in her life, seated in the glow of neon, sharing drinks with her in Vegas. Not just alive, but smiling. Comfortable. Like 2 people who had never really ended. That moment crushed something inside me. Because it meant every tear she'd ever shed, every story she'd told about him, was part of a script. A performance designed to keep me from asking questions. The truth was layered. Not just infidelity, not just betrayal, but years of deception. By then, the decision was clear. This wasn't a problem solved with arguments or pleading. This wasn't the kind of betrayal that earned a private conversation. This required exposure, a consequence so undeniable it would shatter the illusions she'd built. So, I began to set the stage. First, Adam Cole's wife, Catherine, a pediatrician, respected, with a spotless reputation. I dug into her background. She had no idea what her husband was doing. I built a file, a neat digital dossier, flight plans, hotel registrations, photos of her husband with Lauren draped on his arm. I sent it anonymously to a divorce attorney with one simple note. You may want to show this to your client, Catherine Cole. It seems her husband's business trips aren't what they appear. Then Scott, Jessica's ex-fiancé, now a real estate developer knee-deep in financial disputes. I sent an anonymous tip to an investigative journalist friend about his lifestyle, his spending, his Vegas connection. When you feed fire enough oxygen, it burns fast, and finally, Jessica herself. She was due to land Sunday afternoon. She texted me midweek, cheerful, from a friend's phone, having so much fun. Can't wait to see you. Pick me up at 3. I texted back one word, okay, but I had no intention of being there. Instead, I found the one person who deserved to meet her more than me, Emily, Scott's current. Sunday came, the day Jessica's plane was scheduled to land. She thought I'd be waiting at the curb with flowers and a smile. She thought she'd slide into my car, feed me carefully edited stories, and erase the trail of betrayal she'd left behind. She had no idea her stage was already built. At the arrivals hall, I wasn't there, but Emily was Scott's girlfriend. The woman who had been told her man was at a wellness retreat in Arizona, meditating with no cell service. I had briefed her, given her every piece of evidence, and she was prepared, not with tears, not with rage, but with something sharper. Cold clarity. She stood tall, composed, holding a poster board. On it was a crystal-clear, high-resolution photograph I had secured from a casino contact. Jessica and Scott sitting side by side at a blackjack table in the high roller lounge. His arm draped over her shoulder, her smile wide, her hand on his thigh. The picture said everything. At 3:06 p.m., Jessica walked out of the gate with her 3 friends. They were laughing, glowing with tans, dragging suitcases heavy with shopping bags. Jessica's phone was in her hand, her face lit up with a smile. She was probably texting me. "I'm here. Where are you?" And then she saw Emily. Her entire expression collapsed in an instant. The smile died. Her face drained pale. She froze in place as her friends bumped into her, confused. Then they followed her gaze, and their laughter evaporated too. The crowd around them slowed. People noticed. Phones came out. The air thickened with curiosity. Strangers sensing the storm about to break. Emily didn't raise her voice. She didn't scream or throw insults. She simply lifted the poster high, letting everyone see. Then she spoke, her voice calm but loud enough to cut across the hall. "Scott sends his apologies," she said evenly. "He couldn't make it today. He's a little busy explaining this picture to me." The words hung in the air like a guillotine. Jessica's friends looked at her, horror dawning on their faces. They hadn't signed up for this kind of exposure. The lies that felt so fun in Vegas suddenly burned under the fluorescent lights of an airport terminal. Jessica stammered, turned, tried to walk away. But the performance wasn't over. From the crowd, another figure stepped forward. A man in a sharp suit, a process server. He walked straight up to Jessica. "Jessica Miller?" he asked, his voice crisp and professional. Jessica blinked, panicked. She nodded. "You've been served." He handed her a thick envelope and walked away. Inside, a formal eviction notice. She had 30 days to remove her belongings from my house, and a restraining order, banning her from contacting me or coming within 500 feet of my home or office. Jessica's hands trembled. She opened the envelope, scanned the papers. Her knees buckled. The shopping bag slipped from her fingers, spilling expensive clothes and perfume across the floor. She covered her face with both hands and began to sob. Her friends. They didn't move to comfort her. They grabbed their luggage and scattered, abandoning her in the middle of the arrivals hall like rats fleeing a sinking ship. The crowd didn't look away. They recorded. They whispered. The confident, defiant woman who had mocked me with the word blocked was now a broken figure on the floor, surrounded by the very luxury that had exposed her. And me? I wasn't there. I was miles away, sitting in my office, watching the entire scene through a live feed from a hidden camera carried by the man posing as her limo driver. I saw everything: her collapse, Emily's cold fury, the process server's precision strike. Justice, I realized, doesn't always come with a bang. Sometimes it comes with silence, paperwork, and a crowd of strangers capturing your fall on their phones. The fallout, the dominoes fell quickly after that. Adam Cole, the wealthy executive who had bankrolled the trip, returned home to find his world on fire. His wife, Catherine, armed with the dossier I had delivered, filed for divorce. And she didn't stop there. She moved their joint assets into a trust for their children, protected by a prenup clause triggered by his infidelity. Adam lost his house, a large portion of his fortune, and eventually his position at the firm. The man, who had lived on magazine covers, became a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms. Lauren, the self-proclaimed leader, found herself named in the divorce proceedings. Her social circles shrank overnight. The wealthy men she once surrounded herself with began to see her not as fun, but as dangerous baggage. She was exiled, her status shattered. Scott, Jessica's ex-fiancé, faced a double strike. Emily walked away for good, armed with evidence and legal counsel. Meanwhile, the anonymous tip I'd fed to a journalist blossomed into a full exposé. His shady real estate practices were dragged into the light. Lawsuits piled up. His reputation bled out in the press. Criminal investigations weren't far behind, and Jessica, her fall was the quietest, but in some ways the deepest. The eviction forced her back into her parents' spare room, 30 years old and stripped of her independence. Her friends abandoned her, unwilling to touch the wreckage. Her reputation was ash. She tried to reach me, burner phones, new email accounts, desperate messages. But I didn't respond. My lawyer sent her a reminder. The restraining order was real. She had gambled everything for attention, for luxury, for excitement, and she had lost it all in one public detonation. The closure. 6 months later, the dust finally settled. Adam Cole, divorced, broke, humiliated. Lauren, socially exiled. Scott, facing lawsuits and criminal investigations, and Jessica, trying to rebuild from nothing. One day, my lawyer forwarded me a letter, handwritten, from Jessica. It wasn't an excuse, it wasn't a plea, it was an apology. She admitted the airport confrontation was the worst day of her life, but also the day she saw herself clearly. She wrote that she was in therapy now, trying to become someone she could respect. She didn't ask me to forgive her, she just wanted me to know she was sorry. For the first time, I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel satisfaction either, just closure. As for me, I had moved on. Emily and I stayed in contact after the airport. At first, we bonded as two people wounded by the same betrayal. But over time, coffee turned into dinners. Conversations turned into something softer, stronger, something honest. We are dating now, slowly, carefully, no secrets, no masks, just truth. And after years of peeling back leaves for a living, I've realized that truth, real truth, is the rarest gift of all. Jessica thought she could block me out for 5 days. She thought she could juggle 2 worlds and keep them apart, but in trying to hide her lies, she gave me the space to expose them all. She gave me 5 days. I gave her a lifetime blackout. And behind that wall, at last, my world is quiet. My world is safe.